Now, there's been another stark reminder that Iraq is far from reaching any kind of stability anytime soon. A further 16 deaths at the hands of suicide bombers at an army base north of Baghdad. Egor Piskunov now on how the deadly mix of sectarian bloodshed and terrorist attacks are wiping chances for peace and setting new records for civilian casualties.
A journalist from Baghdad, Abdul Razak, has grown used to being in the center of events, but never before did he become the story himself, until one day he was driving to work when suddenly
I turned towards the two-story bridge and the car exploded. I became conscious only 12 days later, finding my leg was amputated.
He survived, but was shocked again after finding out who was behind the attack.
My neighbor admitted being an Al-Qaeda member since 2007. He said killing me was a direct order he received.
The situation in Iraq has long gone beyond sectarian violence.
It has become clear. Iraq has become subjected to a war of genocide by terrorists, targeting all spheres of life.
Last week, Mr. Maliki met with President Obama. The two leaders agreed Iraq was in urgent need of help. But besides general statements, nothing concrete came out, like how to save people's lives on the ground.
You, I, and anyone who walks in the streets at any moment may face a car bomb, a motorcycle bomb, or an explosive belt. At any moment, anyone may be killed.
It's 10 or 11 years now that they're talking about a new security plan, but nothing changes and the situation is only getting worse.
And neither new checkpoints, arrests, nor constant anti-terror operations seem to be enough to gain control. It's merely impossible to establish exactly how many civilians were killed in Iraq since the U.S.-led invasion in 2003. Many became casualties during military operations, including shootouts and shelling. Some died due to a lack of health care and ruined infrastructure. But what we're looking at now are deaths specifically from terror attacks this year alone. And the figures, well, the figures speak for themselves. Egor Piskunov, RT, Moscow.
However, a lot of deaths resulting from that war are often overlooked, as RT's been hearing from a former US Marine who's also a 3-year Iraq veteran.
Well, a couple of the big facts that need to be known is just to kind of, quantify the human tragedy that was the second siege of Fallujah. Anywhere between 3,000 and 6,000 civilians were killed. The operation created about 200,000 refugees. We destroyed 2/3 of the city. I mean, really just like leveled it to the ground. And this was a city with 300,000 inhabitants. It wasn't a small city. It was just massive, massive destruction and incredible human suffering. And there's really a strong possibility that the weapons that we used during the siege, all the scientific research that has been done on this topic so far is suggesting that those weapons have created a public health crisis in Fallujah, a really serious public health crisis that is causing incredible rates of birth defects in children being born and in cancer throughout the city. Incredibly high rates, higher than Hiroshima after the atomic bombs even.
Well, IraqBodyCount.org is often seen as among the most reliable databases in recording civilian deaths. One of its co-founders has been explaining to RT how they gather and process information to collate the most accurate statistics possible.
A prominent US general said of the war in Afghanistan, "We don't do body counts." It's too hard, they said, to get accurate information out of such chaos. So others stepped in, believing the human cost of war must be counted. Thus, Iraq Body Count was born. And according to the website's figures, this year has been the deadliest in Iraq since 2008. Hamid Dargadan's a co-founder. Hamid, why this upsurge in violence? More than 7,000 people have been killed this year.
Well, there's a variety of factors, but one of the factors that we tend to focus on, because we are looking at the statistical rise in deaths, is the cycle of violence. One of the things that we've observed is that as the violence rises, you get more reason for the violence to rise yet again due to reprisals and retaliation attacks.
And on the same day as the Boston bombing, there were 55 lives lost in Iraq and 300 people injured, but we didn't hear anything about that.
Because it's just accepted as normal for Iraqis. That's what Iraqis do. They endure this new form of freedom.
The government here and in Iraq seem very reluctant to publish any kind of civilian death toll.
It's embarrassing, and it's obviously doesn't paint a very good picture of Iraq or their handling or management of the violence in their country.
Governments say it's just too difficult to get the figures, but you seem to manage. How do you do it?
Well, most of the information we get is from these sort of small newswire type reports and Iraqi media reports and so on that don't really make the news that an ordinary news consumer would see. In other words, it takes a research effort to pull together all these small reports that come from different parts of the country and that list what you would think of as small events, you know, someone being assassinated, blown up in their car and so on.
A year of carnage then in Iraq, and if you want accurate information about what's going on, just go to our website. RT's doing a special project with Iraq body count. Go and take a look from Friday.
And the American author of Blood on Our Hands says his research showed the operation had simply devastated the nation.
The invasion was not just some sort of mistake. The invasion and occupation were a serious crime. That was a crime of aggression under the UN Charter. Iraq is still suffering from the destruction of its regime and its government and its society by the United States. The United States employed a classic divide and rule strategy, pitting people of different sects against each other and inciting violence that is completely unprecedented in that country, and now has installed a sectarian-based government, and this is just a reign of terror. And in that sense, some of the worst aspects of the U.S. occupation are still continuing today.